Hi, Year 11. I just wanted to quickly explain to you the benefits of using a source log and why you're using a source log for this research presentation. So if you go to Google Classroom, you would have obviously seen that for Thursday's lesson, we are starting to do some research on our world theatre tradition, and you need to open up this theatre source log and make a copy for yourself, okay? And as you can see, the theatre source log is broken up into three different categories, okay? So we have published materials, which are books or journals. We have audio-visual materials, which can be YouTube videos, online filmed lectures or documentaries, interviews, TED Talks, etc. And then it can also be filmed workshops, guys, if you find a filmed workshop. And also we have online materials, which is your basic websites, your e-journals, and your images, okay? Not including Wikipedia. So the reason that it's important to have a range of these sources where possible, I would expect that you have two types for each particular category at a minimum. Of course, you might have more websites than you do e-journals, but to have at least one e-journal or one book on your theatre style. And if you're sitting there thinking there's no way that there's a book written about Bunraku theatre, for example, there's plenty, all right? Lots of history of theatre books that have been written far before the internet was invented, okay? So the reason that we have these three categories for your source log is that in criteria A for your research presentation, you'll notice that one of the guiding questions says, to what extent does the student effectively and clearly explain a specific performance convention? But the second part is more so to do with your research. So it says, effectively supporting their work with a range of appropriate sources. In order to be able to get a 7, you need to use a range of appropriate sources. And even the next band down, which is a 5 to 6, adequately supporting their work with a range. So even down to a 5, you need a range of different sources. And a range of different sources is not merely just websites and YouTube videos, okay? So as you can see, this is why your source log is so important. So as you can see with this student here, she has put in each of her sources one by one using APA referencing, and the APA referencing tool is available on Google Classroom. And she's summarizing underneath why she chose this source, so why it was helpful to her in her research presentation and what she was able to gain from that or what she learned, okay? So if you have a look at her finished copy, which was sent to the IB, this is how much work she put into it. And it looks like a lot, Year 11, but actually if you get used to doing this just as soon as you find your information and just quickly reflect on it, that's all it is a quick reflection, you'd be surprised at how quickly you can do this and it becomes autonomous and it becomes like a routine for you. So for example, she used a video here and it's on Kabuki, the People's Dramatic Art. And she has reflected, she said, the short video allowed me to gain a brief and summarized overview of the history of Kabuki and its development. And then she goes on to also reflect and she says, look, I didn't use any of the specific information in my presentation on my slides, but it did help in my understanding. So it helped in her understanding because she used a clip of this video in her presentation and created it into a GIF so that it could visually aid her presentation. So even though you might not be using the whole entire article, you might find an awesome image, or you might find a great little video that you want to put in the background on still replay that just really aids and supports your presentation and what you're trying to talk about. So this is why it's important in order to showcase your understanding of the research. If you have written into your source log why it was helpful and what you learned from it, again, that supports your research presentation as a whole. And if I was an examiner and I found a student who had just a bibliography with some copy and pasted URLs, as opposed to a student who had explained to me why the research was helpful and has a range of different sources, I can tell you which student would be getting marked higher, okay, in terms of the points available. And one of the comments that came back from the IB about this student's work was how impressive the level of depth of research was. Okay, so that's why it's important to use a source log. By all means, go off and create your own now, but this is something you'll need to be chipping away at, and this is the first checkpoint for your assignment as well. Okay, this is something I'll be checking on before we actually get to your drafting stage. So I hope that explains to you why we use the source log, and happy researching. If you have any questions, just let me know.